You know the bad thing about tennis? And the good thing about racquetball is, good morning, is when you play tennis after you hadn't played it.
And then Parkland, which is pretty close to Miami. It's about 45 minutes away. Yeah. So if he was in Miami, how did he like? I would rather get comparison. Cardio, I play sport and not just run.
Yeah,
I don't mind working out, but don't.
I don't like to punish myself. Yeah, I'm not a gym rat. You know, I mean, because that's punishment.
Yeah. A couple times a week, I'm not gonna run unless I'm getting chased
I understand.
or I'm playing a sport. I'm not running. At least it's hot, but you get the difference.
All right, y'all, it's time to start. Good morning, virtual students. Hopefully y'all had a good weekend and a good Monday. It's been a minute since I've seen you. Hopefully you got some good studying in. Again, I think it's important that you sit down at a desk. It'd be great if you have two laptops or a desktop and a laptop. You could rifle through Google, look up stuff on YouTube, read definitions, write them down, go to YouTube, look up, go to Google, look up. Yeah, I'll tell you a little story before we get started. There was a man in South Florida, lived in a small town north of Bradenton, down below Tampa. He was a widower, 75 years old, and living a good life. He's retired, had a fine home. One morning, he's drinking his coffee in his Florida room. That's an old saying for the old people. They don't call it a Florida room anymore. You know, that was a trendy name for a minute for a sunroom, but nevertheless, he looked out and he saw something splash around in his pool. So he walked outside, noticed an alligator in his pool. If you know anything about South Florida, that's not terribly unusual. So he called the county, and the county sent a couple of workers out there in a truck, and they do things like that, you know, for people in the small town. And they walked out to the pool, the two county boys did, and they said, "Oh, sir, we can't mess with an alligator this size. That's a 13-footer. That's like cable TV size. Our insurance plan, our county insurance won't let us fool with alligators that big." So they left, and the man's like, "Well, damn, I got a problem on my hands now." So it was a small town. So he called a few fellas around town that do extra things for extra money, you know, paint, cut grass, you know, what have you. And they'd come out there one at a time, willing to help them. But once they saw the size of the alligator, they weren't willing no more. So after 3 days, and the alligator's still alive, after 3 days, he realizes he's got a problem on his hand. So boom, all of a sudden, light bulb up over his head. He thought, I'm going to kill two birds with one stone. See, he had a 26-year-old daughter still living with him. She was kind of homely, and he was worried about whether or not he was ever going to get her married off. So he put an ad in the county weekly. First young eligible bachelor that comes and gets this alligator out of my pool on August 26th at noon wins $100,000 cash and my daughter's hand in marriage. It was a package deal that came together. Well, this was a small town, like I say. So on the 24th, Saturday, at 11:30, he looks out his window and sees the entire damn town circling around his pool. And he sees some vans with the big satellite dishes on top. He sees some people out in the stands with a microphone and foam on the top, you know. This was a small town. So he walked out and he'd cut a tree down the week before. So he stood up on the stump and he said, "Hey, man, I had no idea it's going to get this kind of turnout. Good to see all y'all." And he started pointing out some people he recognized, knew by name. He said, "Of course, all y'all know why you're here. The reason," and before he could say another word, a young, brave soul jumped in the pool with that alligator. And they started wrestling to the point where they worked up a froth. You know, you couldn't even tell who was winning. It didn't last long, maybe 2 minutes. No, you can't last long wrestling an alligator in the water. But after 2 minutes, that alligator floated belly up dead. And a weary arm come up out of the froth. And a radio station reporter who had been sitting there, jaw agape in amazement, walked over, switched hands with a microphone, grabbed that limp arm and pulled him out of the pool. And he just fell on the ground like a limp noodle. He was physically spent. Everybody is in amazement. And the radio reporter gets on one knee and puts the microphone. He says, "Sir, I have never witnessed an act of bravery like that. What have you got to say?" And the man said, "Who the hell pushed me in?" Point is, y'all may be in that pool right now in midterms next week, and you got to do what you got to do to get out of that pool. Okay, like it or not. Page 115, our learning objectives in the subject of real estate brokerage. We're going to describe the fundamentals of real estate brokerage and licensing laws. Can't hear, Savannah? Can you hear now? I got to wait. Savannah, please tell us quickly if you can hear now. Okay, y'all, I do not turn the microphone on before 6 o'clock. I have failed to unmute, so I do appreciate y'all letting me know, but it's not unusual for the microphone to not be on before class starts. Sometimes I'm talking to my class with it muted. But regardless, today these subjects bookmark agency. All right. So last week we talked about agency, we talked about the fiduciary responsibilities. We talked about the fact that they've got an acronym, COLD AC, confidentiality, obedience, loyalty, disclosure, accountability, and care. I even gave you an example. I said, we can't miss the easy questions. And they could have an easy question that says, which of the following is not a fiduciary responsibility? That question only requires you to know the little acronym. But there will be, since agency is one of the larger subjects, there will be agency scenarios. They're not going to be nice enough to tell you who is a client and who is a customer, but you've got to use your knowledge, your understanding of the concept to identify, based on the words being used, who is a customer, who is a client. And like I told you, really the biggest distinction is the difference between customer and client. If knowing the difference between customer and client helps you really understand a vast subject called agency. And we talked about that the difference is not that big of a deal. In one situation, I can provide an array of real estate services, show you properties that fit your needs, your desires, your price range, your school district, all that. But if you want all of that and some advice, recommendations, and suggestions on top of it, then you got to be a client. So the advice, the recommendations, and the suggestions, the biggest difference between the two. And the law feels very strongly about you never providing client level services to a non-client. If they are a customer and they have not signed anything with you, do not give them advice, recommendations, or suggestions. And if you have the professional ability to understand that, then you'll never have a problem. But what did we say? Our natural inclination is to be helpful. So sometimes you have to suppress that natural inclination to be helpful. Somebody asks a question, you want to blurt out the answer, but then you gotta remember the relationships and who you're to be loyal to. You know, we expect loyalty in our personal relationships. We expect loyalty in our business relationships. And if you've ever felt strongly about loyalty in your personal relationships, then feel as damn strongly about them in your business relationships. We're going to discuss today that we're going to describe the fundamentals of real estate brokerage and licensing laws. We're going to talk about the purpose and basic elements of antitrust laws. Interesting, given what's been going around with NAR and the lawsuits, which I do not want you to focus on, but I'm going to hit on today, that affect real estate practice, such as price fixing, boycotts, and allocation of markets. Then we'll talk about professional organizations that you as a practitioner could choose to become a member of, and some of the ethics that come with being a member of some of these organizations, and then how you can utilize technology in your day-to-day practice. So let's turn the page. I hope you find this chapter interesting. Purpose of license laws is to protect the public, frankly. You write that in the left-hand margin. You will have a question, and there's only going to be one question that you'll hear me guarantee is going to be on your exam, and it's what I'm about to say. What is the purpose of Alabama license laws? To protect the public. You know how often I compare this to cars? What's the purpose of driving laws? To protect the public. Yeah. The laws are the leash. We are the pit bull. And the law is trying to protect the consumer from us. They want us to be, you know, within the ethics and within the law. Over in the page 117, real estate brokerage. The first sentence is something, if you know, you don't need to highlight, but brokerage is simply the business of bringing parties together. I've always liked the term of calling a broker a business cupid. They're setting folks up to fall in love. If you introduce the buyer and the seller and they get married in a business sense, then you get a commission. We introduce two parties. Simply the business of bringing parties together. The next paragraph, if you would, highlight the first three sentences. I'll talk while you highlight. A licensed broker business may take many forms as permitted by state law. It could be sole proprietorship, corporation, limited liability company, might be a partnership. The business could be independent, or it could be a regional or national franchise. You know, what is the benefit of, let's say you're an entrepreneur and want to open a business. I'm sure a lot of people listening to me have opened a business before and or have one now. But I'm just saying, if you want to open a business, you could elect to become a franchise member if there is a franchise within your industry. What would be the benefit of it? Instant name recognition, right? People are instantly going to give me the benefit of a doubt, even though I'm brand new, because of the history of the franchise. The franchise is probably going to provide forms, you know what I mean? So I don't have to have an attorney to come up with all my forms. They provide all my employment agreements, office policy, you know, blah, blah, blah. So that's the same thing in real estate. I could open up a Century 21, a Coldwell Banker, a Keller Williams, an Exit Realty, an ERA, a Weichert. My gosh, I could go on and on. Better Homes and Gardens, etc. Those are franchises. Or Realty South, That is an independent company. Realty South is not a franchise. They are not all individually owned by different people. Realty South is all owned by the same entity, all of the branches. And they are all over the state. And I think there's a couple in New Orleans, in Louisiana. I think there's a couple in Florida. There may be even one in Georgia. I don't know. A lot of this is not important for exam purposes. We're just kind of talking about a real estate brokerage as a concept. But look at the bottom list, the bottom bulleted list. Regardless of what you do, a business has basic needs. You got to maintain space and equipment. You got to hire licensed professionals as well as unlicensed support staff, determine compensation, direct staff, implement procedures. I don't know if any of that's important on the exam. We're just talking about the subject matter. On page 118. Now, guys, let me preface before I go on. A lot of you, the majority of you statistically, are wanting to go into residential sales. But some of you are wanting to go into commercial real estate. And within commercial real estate, you have development, sales, management. Some of you are wanting to go into land. Some of you want to go into property management. You want to manage people's individual properties. Or you want to manage apartment complexes. Some of you are just investors and you don't want to work with the public, but you'd like to take advantage of the fact that a property you're interested in buying for your own personal holding happens to be listed and you get the commission. You know, that's icing on the cake. But again, statistically, the majority of you are in this to go into residential sales. So fair or unfair, the entire course is geared around residential sales. Don't feel that that's unfair to you if you're not going into residential sales. Just understand that once you get licensed, there will be courses in your individual area of expertise that you can attend, okay? Don't worry about that. I said all of that to come back to page 118, that the relationship of broker sales associate, this is discussed in the context of residential sales, not anything else. And typically, this relationship you see in the second paragraph is an independent contractor. But understand that is a custom, that is a coincidence. It is not a rule that has been established by anybody. The government cannot tell us how to do business and what we can charge for our business. The industry cannot get together and collude as competitors as how to charge for our services and how to offer services. That would be a collusion, antitrust. So again, it's just a custom. You know, sometimes things are done in business because you're required to do things in a certain way in a state. Sometimes things are done in a certain way because it's the custom. I think we may have had that conversation in another chapter. But the independent contractor status, there are two reasons I chose real estate. I get naked in the name of humility in front of my students because I don't care. I just don't take myself too seriously, and I hope you don't either. My point is, as I told y'all, when I got this, when I was young, got out of service, I was scared of life. I knew I wasn't going to be a scientist, an accountant, an engineer, a doctor. I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know what I was good at. I was just scared. But I knew I could sell homes. From a product knowledge standpoint, I grew up in them, damn it. I was comfortable with them. I could talk about them, you know. I didn't have to learn about some fancy product that I had to sell. I already had a sense of comfort. And I thought, I ain't got to go through school, just a little course, multiple choice exam. I said, shoot, this is within my, I can do this. But the independent contractor, that's just the grooviest part. Because time is precious. I've seen so many examples of this in my mind, and y'all just have to hear my life and my examples. You've got yours that mirror mine, I'm sure. But I remember being at a family reunion. We used to always go to Box Springs, Georgia, where an uncle of mine had a fine piece of property, perfect for family reunions. And I remember, you know, we had a favorite uncle, all of us cousins. I don't know if you ever had a gaggle of cousins that were your age, and, you know, our favorite uncle, he was always the one. he would get away from the adults and play with us, you know. And we were talking about him, and he had passed away, and one of my cousins just started bursting out crying because she wasn't allowed to go to his funeral in Houston, Texas. And she said, I had the vacation time, but my boss said he couldn't do without me. And I thought, thank God I don't have to rely on somebody allowing me to go see my favorite uncle's funeral. I've never had to worry about that. Driving down the road one time with my buddy Philip, and I think we were heading to Tuscaloosa to see a basketball game. And he said, man, I better slow down. He was driving. He said, man, I can't get no ticket. I ain't got no driver's license. I said, what are you talking about? You ain't gonna drive? He said, I lost it. I was running a tab last week, and me and my few fellas was hitting a bar or two. I don't remember where I left it. I said, well, go to the DMV. And it was almost the end of November. This was at the beginning of basketball season. And he said, Mark, I done used all my sick days, all my personal days, and all my vacation days. And I instantly thought, an errand, a simple errand is now a dilemma in my friend's life. Y'all know what I got to do when I got to go to the DMV? Look for my keys. That is power. Now, a lot of y'all, and I'm not talking about y'all, statistically, a lot of y'all ain't done nothing in the last 3 years. You've been sitting on your fanny at the house. So you understand what it means to be autonomous. It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. The ability to be able to literally design your job around your life instead of your life around your job is a beautiful thing. Some of you got youngins, and they on the road playing soccer, baseball, basketball, you know, they in these leagues. You can get involved with that. You can let your personal interest be a part of your life and design your real estate around it. It's a beautiful thing. God, you got the short course, the multiple choice exam, the income opportunities from each sale, being independent, and some of you still half-assing it. Even though I get on my soapbox. It's like, what do you need in life as an opportunity? I want to ask that to, I'm asking statistical people, not y'all. What do you need? But I want you to highlight in the third paragraph down from the top of page 118, the second sentence. It's a half a line. Can receive compensation only from that broker. That's what I want you to highlight. Third paragraph, second line, just 7 words. Can receive compensation only from that broker. Yeah, again, the guy's got the ADHD worse than I do. He'll get a flow going, you know, and then he just will stick a random fact in there, and then he'll get back in his flow. So, you know, y'all don't got to worry about it. I'll try to help you with it. But it's a very important point. There'll be 2 questions on the exam challenging your knowledge of this. Never will you receive compensation from anybody other than your company. A buyer will never pay you. A seller will never pay you. Another company will never pay you. Your company's name better be in the left-hand corner of every damn check that you ever get. There could, I've had a nugget. Students tell me there's this scenario on there where the buyer's agent finds a property for their buyer client. And the buyer client says, gee whiz, we didn't think the house we described to you existed in the world, and I'll be damned if you didn't find it in 1 week. We feel like you went above and beyond. We feel like you're very good at what you do. We feel like we want to give you a bonus. Can we give you a bonus? Like a tip, like you'd give a server? Well, the answer is yes and no. Yes, they can pay you a bonus, but it's got to go to the company who then pays you. The buyer can, okay, I don't mean to repeat myself. Your company's name better be in the left-hand corner of the check, period. I don't care the circumstances. You know, they'll create scenarios with extenuating circumstances because everybody loves to have a damn excuse while they ain't got to do what they're supposed to do. Well, like a kid. You know what I mean? Well, this happened. I don't have nothing to do with it. Getting carried away. I then had 2 cups of coffee real quick right before class started. Strong coffee. But the top of page 119, you know, that was where my flow was going, the independent contractor versus the employee. I've always considered being an employee being on welfare. Someone else has determined what your skill set is worth. And a lot of times I may go work in accounts receivable at Allstate, and they set me on a cubicle. Here, Mr. Yarbrough, we're paying you $11.75 an hour. Same thing we paying all 14 people on this row of cubicles. And you know what? All week long, the person that sits beside me, they FaceTime and they're on the personal on the computer all week. I'm killing it company-wise. But my damn check's the same size as this fool's check. It's welfare. Ain't gonna be no employee. You arbitrarily gonna determine what my skills are worth, my time is worth to the world. I'll determine that. And you know, when you're an employee, you're sitting there wanting a raise, feeling like you deserve a raise. It wears on your mental, you know, it gets you all. The only person I gotta have a come to Jesus meeting with myself is myself if I'm an independent contractor, if I want to make more, right? You know, the more things you can be in control of is where the power comes. The more things you can be in charge of. And I want to be in charge of my time. I want to be in charge of how much I make, what I'm doing on Tuesday, whether or not I can go to my uncle's funeral, whether or not I just to take your youngins to the doctor is a dilemma to the working man. Get your car fixed. God forbid you got to leave your car in the shop for 2 days. People up a creek. So yeah, the independent contractor is beautiful. Oh, and you know, kind of, sort of, it falls within a concept we call entrepreneurship. That is what separates America from the rest of the world. You can be an entrepreneur in other countries, but it's not the same as America. You ain't got to know somebody. You ain't got to be a family member of a politician. You ain't got to pay money under the table illegally to company. I know a guy in Germany, and he said, Mark, you got to do a lot of illegal stuff to have a business. And it's all with the government. But you can be a knucklehead with a 3rd grade education, set you up a damn store in a shopping center and start selling something tomorrow. Tomorrow. But you know, with entrepreneurship, there comes risk. Do y'all know how many businesses out of 10 is a ratio? And this number has not changed in 50 years. How many businesses out of 10 fail in year 1? 9 out of 10. And of the 1 out of 10 that makes it to year 2, as a group, how many of them fail in year 2? 9 out of 10. So 2 years is the statistical storm you have to weather as an entrepreneur. But you know, it's risky. And risk in an adult world equates to loss of money and mental health. You know, what if I'm 35 years old and I've been working at a manufacturing plant since I was 19? But one day my boss, you know, gets upset with me and he lets a string of cuss words out at me. So I give him the finger and I lose my job. And I go home, I tell my wife, I gave my boss the finger. By God, I'm tired of taking it. She says, oh, and you ain't got a backup plan, do you, dummy? I'm like, ew. She's kind of right. So I get on the jobs near me, you know. But then boom, a light bulb comes up on my head. And I think, you know what? I'm going to open up a clothing store. Because my grandparents had a clothing store. And when I was 8 years old, they brought me on. Just some little folding money that let me sweep up in the back and break down cardboard boxes, you know. Then I got 10, 11. I was old enough and big enough now to tote boxes from the truck to inside and bust the boxes open, hang some stuff, you know. And then when I got 12, 13, 14, shoot, grandma taught me how to use a cash register, taught me how to order inventory in the back. And then my grandparents passed away when I was 17. So this whole time being a grown man, I've had that in my chest, you know, that entrepreneurship. And now I got a window of opportunity open in my life. And I think I'm going to open up a damn clothing store. I'm going to do it. Grandparents be proud of me. So listen, our mind, let's open up a clothing store. I mean, we got to have a locale, don't we? Are we going to rent a locale? We're going to own one. We're going to have a freestanding building. We're going to have a shopping center. We're going to do a mall. Let's say we do a shopping center. That's usually the easiest and cheapest. You ever notice in the shopping center, everybody's got a sign above their business? You know how much them signs cost? Just about 20, 30,000. That's all. Not much. And I'm going to need in my store, I'm going to need shelving, hangers, maybe the little security things, you know, you stick up in there, you know, cash register, a computer with software to order inventory and keep up with our accounting. Got to have all that. I better advertise. You'd be a fool not to. Am I going to advertise on radio or television? I don't know if any of y'all have ever inquired about what a commercial on TV or commercial on radio costs. Am I going to advertise in a magazine? Am I going to put a board up in the high school outfield? Where my boys go to school? Am I going to put a 4x4 ad in my yearbook of my kids where they go to school? Am I going to get one of them coupons in the envelope, you know, that everybody gets in the mail? I don't know, but I'm spending money. Are you hearing the cash register ringing as I'm having this conversation? Then I got to hire people. And I haven't bought any inventory yet. And that's my whole reason for even doing this. I better either have good credit or a lot of money. Insurances, business licenses, permits, personal property taxes. And after year one, statistically, my business didn't make it. And I probably worked 80 hours a week year one because I didn't have the payroll to pay people. I just lost a lot of money. I had a dream, but I lost a lot of money. Entrepreneurship. So now let's talk about real estate. If you're going into residential sales, once you get a license, even though you're working for a company, your company cannot tell you what to do, when to do it, and how to do it. There's a reason they call it an independent contractor. You are going to be autonomous with a capital A. I can't give you production goals. I can't tell you how long your lunch is. I can't tell you what days of the week to work. I can't tell you to knock on doors, send mail outs. I can't tell you what to do. A broker can either be satisfied with you or not. A or B. But to tell you what to do, when to do it, and how to do it is to treat you like an employee. There's a reason why I have a choice. I can hire you, have more control, and let you be an employee, or I can hire you as an independent contractor. See, as an independent contractor, it's less risk for me because I only have to pay you when you perform. I'm not promising to pay you money and then you end up not being good and I'm just shelling out money every week for an unproductive employee. And the independent contractor allows skilled people to flourish and make a lot of money. Because when you make a wage, there is a ceiling that has been artificially placed in your life over your head. You can't bust through it. Whereas an independent contractor, I determine what I'm gonna make. Do you know the top producing realtor in Birmingham, residential realtor, for the last 30 years has not made less than $1 million. You know, every year we have an awards banquet and there's a realtor of the year, and that's not always the top producing. There's different awards. You can be realtor of the year and it has nothing to do with production. But the top producing realtor has not made less than $1 million. And guys, you would think, well, that's a realtor who's selling big fancy houses. No. Usually the average transaction is less than $350,000. That's called somebody hustling. Now, we can't beat everybody. You know, I'm a sports fan like a lot of y'all, and I was an athlete in high school. You know, there are athletes with statistics that are not achievable by the average dude, and it never will be, you know, but at least they show you the potential. There are just overachievers in every area of life, aren't there? But at least they show you the potential. So when I get my license, I go to work for a company. I'm trying to compare what you're trying to do to entrepreneurship. I go work for a company. When you go work for a company, guess what you don't pay for? That office. You didn't pay for the desks, for the chairs, for the copier, for the supplies. You're not paying the monthly phone bill, the power bill, the ad bill. None of that. And all the inventory that you need is all those homes for sale. You ain't got to go buy no inventory. And being an independent contractor, you're autonomous like you would be if you were an entrepreneur. So by passing this damn course and getting your license, you're going to experience entrepreneurialism without the risk. That's a beautiful thing. I hope you see that, and I hope you see it clearly. So the independent contractor, I teach this from an inspirational, get you fired up standpoint, and a nuts and bolts. I like the last bullet on page 119. You may be a couple inches above me. We all know that. I don't want to have to keep repeating that, but at the bottom of page 119, there's 3 bullets. The third bullet says a substantial portion of the sales associate's income must be based on production and not number of hours worked. Because an employee gets paid based on number of hours worked, all right? Guys, as you would imagine, see, there's a reason why the real estate industry went to the independent contractor status. I don't know when they officially did that. And I've not talked to all these people. I'm just logical. If I can call y'all independent contractors, it relieves me as the business owner a tremendous amount of overhead, which frankly is, you know, the lack of money is the #1 reason why businesses fail. It's not because their product wasn't desirable or their service wasn't desirable. It's they didn't have enough money to weather a bad month or a bad 2 months, you know. It's lack of capital is what the nerds say. Why did I make that point, damn it? Oh, so if I own a business, if I can lessen my overhead, I'm addressing the #1 reason why businesses fail, lack of capital. Because if y'all were employees, I have payroll taxes. Some of y'all may be accountants or bookkeepers and know a little bit about what I'm talking about, but I have payroll taxes. I have to match your FICA. You ever see your FICA on it? Not only do I have to pay you your paycheck, but I have to pay the FICA. And I have to pay for workman's comp and unemployment and all of that. Okay. And depending upon the size of my crew, I may have to provide some kind of benefits. So yeah, by being able to call you independent contractors, it relieves me, the company owner, of a significant amount of overhead. But you know how everything in life is give and take. If I want this, I got to give this up. If I want this, I got to give this up. What do I give up by calling all my peoples independent contractors? I give up control because you're independent. I can't tell you what to do, when to do it, and how to do it. I can't give you a production goal, a quota. I can't tell you nothing. I know real estate agents, their license is active. with a company and they haven't been in the office in 5 years. And the broker still keeps their license because it doesn't cost them a penny to keep your license. They only pay you when you sell. So as you would imagine, there is corruption in this area. There are there are business owners who they tell the IRS that they're people's independent contractors, but yet they tell you when to be at work, when to get off work, how long your lunch is. You know what I mean? They try to have their cake and eat it too. So I'm told there's a question on the exam. You can write this in the left-hand margin. If you get audited, you need to prove 90% of your income. Just write 90% sales versus hours. They want to make sure that your income is based on production and not clocking in. That's why I say sales, meaning units sold. Why 90%, Mr. Yarbrough? You know, I got to thinking about that too when I first heard it. But I know of a fact. I know realtors who work for a company and they also cut the company's grass every Saturday and the broker pays them cash. I know realtors that work in a real estate office, but they also clean the office on the weekends for cash by the broker. So I guess the 90% was the law anticipating out of your 100% that you might have made from Sunshine Realty, 10% might have been for cutting the grass and, you know, whatever. But just remember the 90%. They want to make sure, and that would validate that you're legit, that your people are legit independent contractor and or you're a legit independent contractor. Turn to the page. Real estate assistant. Guys, I think y'all remember me telling you the story about MLS. When MLS came about, I told you that all the old timers that were in the business, they said, Mark, it allowed our income to triple overnight. I mean, think about it. Used to, we only had our inventory. Now we got the whole market. It just opened up the inventory. So, talking to some old timers and understanding this logically, there is still a ceiling. Even if you're an independent contractor, there is still a ceiling on how much you can make. It's not set by a company or a man. Who is it set by? Mother Nature. No, I love the you, because that is right. But Mother Nature, because there's only so many hours in a day, right? And we got to sleep and we got to have time for our kids. So time is a barrier on how much we can make. So as an industry, you know, full of talented people who want to make more, you got to figure out a way to bust through that metaphorical ceiling or figure out a way to push it up. A real estate assistant was one of the first ways. You know, I remember the 90s, honest to God, was the first decade where we started hiring assistants. So if I'm a real estate professional, you know, maybe I'm the top dog in red apple real estate and I make X dollars, healthy, I make the most in the company. I got a long car out in the parking lot, you know, I got a swimming pool at my house. The kids are in private school. I'm doing well. Don't worry about me. But damn it, I got skills and I know I can make more. So I can't convince Mother Nature to create a longer day, but what I can do is hire a real estate assistant. And now I've got someone who can do some of those menial admin tasks. They can put signs in yard, they can do data entry, return calls, return emails, make copies. And what does that do? Effectively gives me more hours in a week to put signs in yard and tow people around. So the real estate assistant was the first way to raise the ceiling on how much you could potentially earn in the real estate business. The bottom of the page, broker's compensation. Go to the fourth line. Go to the end of the fourth line and highlight the sentence that begins with the amount of a broker's commission is negotiable in every case. That's the whole sentence. The amount of a broker's commission is negotiable in every case. And if you read above it, compensation could come in the form of a flat fee, an hourly rate, a percentage of the sales price. The majority of the times, and I'm talking 95% of the time throughout the nation, it is a percentage of the sales price. Again, that's not an agreement in the industry. It's just a custom. The fact that most people eat Coke, the state doesn't require people to drink Coke, but the fact that most people choose Coca-Cola is a coincidence and custom, has nothing to do with anybody requiring it. But you know, there's a lot of people that say that, it's all 6%. Bull. You go into any real estate company, start pulling filing cabinets open. You'll see 5%, 4%, 4.5%, 5.5%, 7%, 8%, 10%. You'll see all, but the majority of them are going to be 6%. That's not because of a collusion. That's just because in any business, whether I sell cans of corn in the grocery store or whether I sell gas at a service station, I got to be competitive, right? If I charge more than everybody, nobody's going to come see me. If I charge less than everybody to try to get more business, I might just break even. A lot of damn business, but I ain't making no money, you know? So it's not unusual for most people to charge the same thing as their competitors. That's true in the real estate business, but it's coincidence. The first sentence of the next paragraph highlight, the broker's compensation will also be affected by the participation in the transaction of a broker from another firm who may be representing one of the parties. This is called cooperating brokers. MLS is a part of this. We've been discussing, and I know a lot of y'all are aware of the MLS lawsuit, or of the fact that NAR settled out of court. I really kind of don't want to talk about it because I don't want you thinking about unnecessary information. You don't need to be talking to realtors about it. Don't be trying to learn about crap right now that is not in this book. I'm shoveling stuff and still shoveling, and I ain't through. And guys, here, let me tell you this. It ain't going to, all that hubbub last week about NAR settling out, it ain't going to change a damn thing. Everything's going to continue as it has been. That's not a bad thing or a good thing. I'm just trying to assuage your feelings. If you're thinking, great, I get into business at the wrong damn time. No, you didn't. Everything's going to stay the same. At the top of page 121. On the second paragraph, highlight the first sentence. It says, a commission is considered earned when the work for which the real estate broker was hired has been accomplished. Man, it's hot in here for me. Just a little bit, just a little, you can see my breath in here this morning. This thing heated up its whole room. I got it off Marketplace, I think. Ever seen people on Marketplace selling stuff for $2? We'll meet you in Radio Shack parking lot. I'm like, really?
Okay.
You will drive your family to Radio Shack, meet me for $2. You got to appreciate it, I guess, you know, because there's dumb hustlers and smart hustlers, I guess. Because it costs more than $2 a gas to get there. All right, so you just highlighted it says commission is considered earned. You know, you almost want to read that and go, duh. But let's keep moving. You see 3 bullets. The sentence above the 3 bullets. To be entitled to receive compensation from a real estate transaction, you got to be a licensed broker, B, employed, been employed by the buyer or seller, and be the procuring cause of the sale. See, here's the point of those 3 bullets. Even though we call ourselves salespeople, we're not hired to sell real estate. The only person that can sell a property is the owner by signing a deed at the closing. So what we are hired to do, and I have to tell you something you've heard. We're hired to produce a ready, willing, and able buyer. Remember, we're brokers. We're business cupids. I'm out there trying to find, I'm like Match.com, trying to find somebody that you'll like. So when I find a ready, willing, and able buyer, and they step up and make a full price, unconditional offer, there's no question of whether or not I have earned my money, because I'm not hired to sell the real estate. I'm hired to find a ready, willing, and able buyer. And if they make a full price, unconditional offer, I have earned my commission, whether the seller accepts the offer or not. What do you mean, whether the seller accept? Why would the seller not accept a full price? You'd be amazed at the sellers you're going to come across. There's a lot of spitefulness in the world. You know, I might get a full price offer. My realtor show it to me, and I'm like, I knew you was going to do good, Ricky. I'll be damned. I wouldn't sell him water if he was on fire, Mark. His son beat my son up at football practice last year. There's a spiteful reason now why someone's not going to accept a full price offer. But have I performed? See, that's what we're trying to arrive at. Have I performed according to what I was hired for? Yes, I have. Can I sue for a commission? Yes, I can. And now we come back to the list of three, because that's what I got to show in a court of law if I'm suing for a commission. And let's go over the three again. Very logical, very understandable. If I'm suing somebody for a commission, don't you think the courts would want to see proof that I was licensed? That's a very logical requirement of the courts. Number two, don't the courts want to see where they gave you permission to sell? Yeah. And the main reason they want to see my employment agreement is, didn't they promise me in the listing agreement to pay me so much? Well, anytime you sue somebody, you have to sue somebody for a specific amount of money. So that helped me determine what I'm suing the seller for, right? So the third bullet is, I got to show the evidence to the courts that I'm the procuring cause. You might be thinking, Mark, I'm not real sure about what procuring cause is. Well, read the next paragraph to yourself. So procuring cause doesn't mean I physically had to tote the buyer to the property. I just did something that indirectly or directly introduced the property to the buyer. Could have been a billboard, and the billboard made them call an agent, and the agent made them show my listing. That indirectly, I was indirectly responsible for that, okay, because I put the billboard up. But that's what procuring cause is. So, from what I hear, guys, I told you, I get nuggets. From what I hear, there's a nugget on the question in this context. Now, what I just told you is, I said in court, I'd have to prove those three things. They would have had to make a full price unconditional offer. And then I got to prove to the courts that they're ready, that they're willing, and that they're able. The able part is the hardest part to prove in court, because I would either have to have the purchase price in cash if I'm the buyer, or have the ability to get financing. If I don't have the ability to get financing and I don't have the purchase price in cash, then I could not prove to the courts that I was able. And this would prevent realtors from creating scenarios to sue for a commission, getting their friends to make an offer. You see what I'm saying? No, you got to prove you were able. And then that's the nugget that students are telling me, that there's a scenario where a real estate company is suing for a commission, but they could not prove the buyer was able. So they failed to sue for a commission. Again, I gotta show those three things in a court of law, and then I gotta prove that they were ready, willing, and able, and the nugget says that they were not able.
If they were not able, they don't work. because they was not able to call them back or go through.
Well, you were to ascertain that they weren't able. Okay, you know, they're not gonna say the buyer was not able. No, you're gonna take the words in the scenario to determine whether the buyer's not able. Yeah. Okay, now hold on one second. Y'all, I'm muting y'all. All right, gang. It is now 10:54, so we're gonna take our first break. And let's take a break until 11, well, whatever 15 minutes is, okay? All right, Cody, come on up. All right, y'all, let's sit down. Guys, I'm sorry. I'm 6 minutes tardy, and I know that sounds like, Mark, how can you do that? What it was I had somebody come in to do a presentation to my class. It was a real estate company that's trying to recruit new agents, and so my bad. You just got to experience a long break, so I don't know why I'm apologizing so aggressively. Back within the subject matter, we're on page 120. We were talking about the real estate assistant being the first way that a top producer could proverbially push the ceiling up as far as earning potential. And then we went down and talked about the broker's compensation. We said the amount of the broker's commission is negotiable in every case. And then we highlighted that the broker's compensation will also be affected by the participation in the transaction of another firm. This is the sharing of information, MLS. Then on page 121, we talked about the fact that we're not really salespeople, even though we refer to ourselves as salespeople. We're always brokers, which is a business cupid. All we do is introduce parties together and get paid monies for being the go-between. But if someone were to unjustifiably refuse a full price, unconditional offer, then we have the right to sue for a commission. So we just went over the things that I would have to show in a court of law. Got to prove that I was licensed at the time, that I had a listing agreement, and that I was the procuring cause of the sale. Then y'all read a paragraph to kind of learn what being a procuring cause is. So now we're down at the bottom of page 121. Guys, the sales associates compensation, you hear splits often. You hear that word. You've seen me give an example on the board. You know, you may negotiate a 60-40 split. You hear agents saying that with your company, a 70-30 split, meaning the percentage commission earned by the company will be split internally relative to the prearrangement. The very first contract you will ever execute in the real estate industry will be your independent contractor agreement with the broker you choose to go work with. That'll be the very first contract in your real estate industry that you ever mess with. But I'm going to tell you the story of RE/MAX at the bottom. Highlight the last two lines on the bottom of page 121. Again, some of y'all have a second paragraph under sales associates compensation. Is what I'm wanting you to highlight. But I want to focus right now on the first two sentences of that paragraph. Some firms have adopted a 100% commission plan in which each sales associate pays a monthly service charge to the broker. So guys, let's stop right now and assume that you pass the state exam and then you go work for a company and you get a 60-40 split arrangement with your company. Understand that with the exception of some small monthly office fees, that you have your own personal expenses. Just like if I owned a store, I have a cost of doing business, right? There's a cost of doing business at all times. So your cost of doing business will be MLS fees. And if you're going to be a realtor, see, that's been a part of the lawsuit. Fewer and fewer companies are going to require you to be a member of the realtor organization. But, you know, in the past, you had realtor dues, MLS fees. These were your cost of doing business. And so let me tell you the story about RE/MAX. I only know this from talking to some old timers. And then after talking with some old timers, me doing a little research. So RE/MAX came about in the early 70s. And they stirred things up. And I'll tell you why they stirred things up, guys. I would say, I read this a long time ago, and the ratio has been true for many years, that regardless of how many agents a company has, 2 out of 10 are what they rely on. So if a company has 40 agents, that's what, 8. There's about 8 agents they rely on. Fair or unfair, it's not a matter of right or wrong. Because of the independent contractor status, our business has a lot of part-timers. It's just a fact. A lot of retired people who just want to have an office to go to when they're bored and want to get out of the house because the old lady's driving them up the wall. Housewives who their family makes plenty of money, but they're bored and they've got skills and they want to have an outlet, but they're not dependent on it full time. That's 8 out of 10 people who have a real estate license. They do not depend on real estate. So again, in every company, 2 out of 10 agents are the bell cows. That's who the broker relies on to pay the monthly bills. You see where I'm coming from? And when the broker loses those, they start to panic. You know, if I've got 20 agents, but 4 of them are who I rely on, and then one morning I come to work and there's a note, Mr. Yarbrough, we so enjoyed working for you, but us 4, we have left and gone down to Red Root Real Estate because they offered us more. And I'm like, there goes my breadwinners. So this is what RE/MAX did. RE/MAX started the 100% concept. In other words, if you went to RE/MAX, you'd say, are you going to give me a split, 60-40, 70-30? What you going to do? And RE/MAX says, no, we're different. If you're willing to pay us $1,500 a month rent every month, whether you sell real estate or not, then you get 100% of the commission. I don't know how good any of you are at math, but based on your production, there is a mathematical point where it just makes a hell of a lot of sense to pay $1,500 a month rent and get the entire commission. Do y'all see what I'm talking about? I don't know where that production point is on a scale, but it ain't but about 3 or 4 deals into the first year. Now, is there pressure to pay $1,500 a month, whether you sell real estate or not? Yeah, but you know what? Sometimes you need a little pressure to do what the hell you're supposed to do in life. You ever notice that? There's a lot of things I should have done in my life and I didn't because I wasn't pressured. So there ain't nothing about with a little motivation. You know, people tell me, Mr. Yarbrough, I'm going to quit my job when I get my license. I'm like, hell yeah. That's the best way to go. There ain't a better motivator in the world than hunger. And I'm not talking about metaphorical hunger. I'm talking about I'm hungry. There ain't a better motivator in the world than hunger. It'll make you get up going at a quicker pace from the minute your fanny gets out of bed. You people perform under pressure better than they do without pressure. Back to the subject. So when RE/MAX would come to town, this is me talking to old timers. When RE/MAX would come to town, Atlanta, Birmingham, Montgomery, Jackson, Baton Rouge, whatever town, Stillwater, Oklahoma, it doesn't matter. They come out busted out, going all around the country. When they went to a town, all the top producers from all the companies left those companies and went to RE/MAX. So every company in every small town would lose their bell cows. And that starts a panic. When you're a grown man and you got a family and you got to keep a roof over their head and groceries in the pantry and car paid up, there's a lot of pressure. Now my bell cows just walked out on me overnight. So what do you think regular real estate companies began to have to do to avoid that from happening? No, but I like the fact that you're thinking, but they started having to offer the 100% as an alternative to their traditional splits because they didn't want to lose people. If you don't want our split, we damn sure don't want you to go to RE/MAX. So we'll give you the 100% too, just like RE/MAX. And then in the 90s, RE/MAX started offering as an alternative to their 100%, they started offering splits. So now in the modern day, real estate companies are all convenience stores. They're all the same. They just got different addresses. So don't be thinking one company's going to be drastically better than the other. They're really not. Now, in a presentation, you come to meet with me and you're auditioning, me to work for me. I can make anything sound good. You know what I mean? I can describe this in fancy nerd words and make it sound rocket. You know what I mean? Make it sound like it's fancy, but that's just because I'm using fancy words. Any company can make coming to work for them sound fantastic. But guys, you really want to make the decision of who you go work for based on a gut feeling. I think we've talked about that. If you walk into an office and people's making eye contact, smiling, stopping and introducing themselves, and there's smoke coming off the copier and there's traffic, I want to be in that office. That's conducive to motivating me. You know, some offices you walk into, it's like a funeral parlor. It's cold. Everybody's got blue hair. Nobody's looking up, making eye contact. And they may offer me 80-20. With a company with all the activity offering me 60-40. Guys, I'm going to tell you right now, 60% of something better than 80% of nothing. I don't care what kind of calculator you're using. So let it be based on, sometimes you ever meet somebody and you feel like, man, I feel like I've known him my whole life. You just feel, you just got a vibe, that's the kind of, I want you to rely on that vibe as far as who you're going to work for. Because that environment that I walk into every day, that's got to be conducive to me being inspired, motivated. Got to feel some, some colleagues, and we're all in it together. Some companies, they like to bowl and drink beer, and they go to picnics at the railroad park. They a lot of camaraderie. I would want that too if I was an agent. But what I just talked about, I don't know if it's going to be important on the exam. I doubt it. Over here on page 122, you can continue reading on your own when you're outside of class. But when you go to work, when you go interview people, let me just go ahead and tell you the 3 bullets you want to focus on when you interview people. Your compensation, your monthly dues, your monthly expenses. And how are you going to get trained? Your compensation, your monthly expenses, and how are they going to train you? People come to me, Mr. Yarbrough, I don't know what to say when I go meet with companies. I'm brand new. I've never done it. Everybody taking this course is brand new. Everybody getting their license, going to interview real estate companies, are interviewing real estate companies for the first time. It's just normal bubblegum psychology, being new at something and don't want to look like an idiot. All right. That's why I said you will be a better person if you just admit that up front to people. See? I used to tell people, I told you when I interviewed my accountant, I told you the conversation I had with my stockbroker. I sat there and listened to my accountant for 30 minutes. And I said, now I want you to back the hell up and repeat everything you just told me in 3rd grade English. Apparently, I look smarter than I really am. And maybe that's my fault for not telling you that up front. The minute that 82-year-old man told me, he said, tell people you stupid. They think it's refreshing. But when you need information, you ain't going to get it when you clam it up, not wanting to look stupid, So the point is don't feel like you're different than everybody else. Nobody is interviewed real estate companies. So you're not supposed to be polished walking in the door. But I will tell you to wear business attire. Don't go into an interview with a real estate company, even though you're the interviewer. Don't go in there wearing blue jeans or shorts. Be professional. On page 122, another scenario showing you how to determine how much a particular side made. They go through a whole scenario. It'd be good for you to practice outside of class. You can read the scenario, see how the scenario is put in the tree below it. On page 123, you see 2 bulleted lists. The first set of bullets is a academic list of what you provide a seller. When you list property, you help the seller prepare the property for sale. You perform a CMA to assist the seller in pricing. You assist with marketing. You locate and screen buyers. Blah, 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 blah. The second set of bullets is a succinct list of the services you provide a buyer. So I always had a version, not this list, but a version of that first set of bullets. I had this in my listing presentation. It wasn't these, but it was a list of bullets. And if the seller ever tried to get me to come down on my commission, I would say, which of those 2 bullets do you want me to take out? Because if you want me to discount my commission, I'm going to discount my services. Limited services offered, just skip that. I don't know why they're talking about it. It's in the past. It's not applicable to the current. And it's just information you don't need shoveled into your damn head right now. So if I tell you to skip something, I mean skip it, by God. Don't read it outside of class. X through it. I just don't want any unnecessary information in your noggin. Fees on page 124. The fact that most companies charge a commission, a percentage of the sales price, is coincidence. There are real estate companies that charge flat fees. There are buyer agents out west that charge buyers by the hour, like attorneys charge clients by the hour. So there's a variety of ways that real estate companies can charge for their services. And now at the bottom of the page, antitrust laws. Again, this is a big subject in keeping with what's going on with NAR tucking their damn tail and settling out of court. It's sickening. This is my personal opinion. You don't have to share it. But NAR dropped the ball. They've been receiving billions of dollars from us and not providing the services relative to the amount we paid. And they had every chance to step up and save our industry, and they dropped the ball. That's okay. That's what people with money who ain't got skin invested in the game do. They turn and run. So at the bottom of page 124, antitrust laws. Again, y'all have heard my opinion based on the fact that we're a capitalistic economy, which is the best economy the world has ever known and will ever know. You hear young, dumb kids in college saying it's the most evil form of economy, but you hear a lot of dumb crap coming out of kids' mouths these days. Somebody has got a dump truck full of dumb crap, regularly shoveling it in every college. But the capitalistic economy is the best because we're in charge. And that's what knuckleheads don't understand. It's not the government in charge. We are in charge. We determine when a business fails, not the government. We determine which businesses continue to allow to exist, not the government. So it was around 100 years ago, around the 1920s, prior to the First Depression, when the Sherman antitrust laws came about. Now, I don't know your history, but this was a pivotal moment in our country because our major industries were becoming monopolized. Well, they were monopolized. The steel industry, that was Andrew Carnegie. You had the oil industry, that was Standard Oil, that was Rockefeller. Yeah, you had the banking, the JP Morgans, you had the shipping and railroad, that was the Vanderbilts. See, the problem with the monopoly, the only monopolies allowed to continue to exist are the utilities. And here's, some of y'all know what I'm talking about. I have a primary account based on my residence, and then I have sub-accounts for rental properties. And sometimes you can have an empty rental property with an $8 power bill, and it slips between the cracks, and they'll cut your damn primary account off, by accident. It's happened a bunch of times. I have to call them up and cuss them out. And every time I'm cussing them out, and I'm not that mean, I'm kind of exaggerating. It's just to make me feel better. Because what I want to say real bad, I'm taking my business elsewhere. I can't say that, can I? See, that's the problem with not living in a capitalistic economy. Can you imagine not having a choice? Because government dictates which businesses exist and which don't. And every business would be like the DMV. So our major industries were becoming monopolized. If I wanted to ship something from New York to California by rail, It gets there, but it gets there 3 months too late, and it gets there in 1,000 pieces, all broken up. All I can do is let Alabama Power raise hell to make myself feel better, but I can't say, I'm taking my business elsewhere. That was true with oil, with railroad, with shipping, everything. So the government had to step in and say, we got to bust up these monopolies. AT&T was a monopoly then. And that's when they busted them up into South Central Bell, Southwest Bell. I don't know if any of y'all are old enough to remember the Bells. For whatever reason, 20 years ago, AT&T was allowed to reform. I think they're bigger now than they ever were. Some of y'all are old enough to remember around 2000, Microsoft, Bill Gates got sued by the government for antitrust because he was forcing everybody who bought their computers to use Windows, which was not allowing competing operating systems. And now they just, under the threat of antitrust laws, got the National Association of Realtors and a couple of other spineless franchises to settle out of court millions of dollars. And the funny thing is they are griping about our 6% commission. Anytime you read the paper, understand those were not attorneys that wrote those articles. They're idiot journalists who don't know their ass from a hole in the ground. And they're talking about the 6%. Do you know of the $480 million that the realtors settled out of court, how much the attorneys made of that? It's probably about 35%. And they got the gall to suggest 3 and 6% is too much. But the consumer region goes, oh, damn right. Well, I'm having a day. So let's talk about particular antitrust violations, because they were successful with the Sherman Antitrust Act. They broke up the existing monopolies, allowing competition, and everything began to work as the capitalistic economy was intended to. And, but you know how crooks are, especially good crooks. They try to weasel around the laws. They look for loopholes within the law. So we're about to talk about how in the modern day people can weasel around the antitrust laws, because again, the antitrust laws are meant to prevent the formation of a monopoly. And if a monopoly evolves organically, it's going to come in and break it up. So we're at the bottom of page 124. Price fixing is one way. Let's say we're in Opp, Alabama, and there's 3 real estate companies that have been there, and they're run by the 4th generation. Their great-great-granddaddy started them. Just 3 major companies in Opp. But then one of the Opp girls goes off to Auburn and meets an Atlanta boy who's got some family money, and they get married, and they move back to Opp. And he takes some of that family money and starts a real estate company, and it's a hell of a lot nicer than theirs because he got family money. They got leather furniture in the reception area, mahogany wood in the reception area, and it's a brick office. And all of a sudden, it's the shiny new toy in town. These 3 good old boys, they ain't getting no business. So they have a breakfast one morning at Mickey D's, and they say, what are we going to do? And they say, let's cut our commissions to 4% from 6%. He got all that overhead. He won't be able to compete at 4%. We'll run him out like that. That's 3 competitors agreeing to fix the price of a service. See, and that is not good. Their conspiracy, their collusion at that point is not good for the consumer, because new competition is always good for the consumer, because it makes old complacent companies buck up. Now they got to start cleaning harder than they were. Maybe they got to put a new coat of paint. Maybe they got to have some customer service training to get their people smiling bigger than they are, because now they got a shiny new toy in town. Competition is always good for me and you. It drives costs down, quality up. But that's an example of I use real estate as an example, but that could be applied anywhere. 3 hardware stores, you know, Home Depot and Lowe's, they getting upset because Ace is starting to make some moves. Ace is getting bigger. Ace is opening up some stores. So Ace starts to price fix products that are commonly bought by contractors because that's their primary customer, contractors, not me and you. Group boycott. You know, maybe Home Depot and Lowe's calls their lumber company, you know, have a secret meeting, Home Depot and Lowe's, and they had a conference table and they call their lumber, they both buy lumber from the same company. And they call them one morning, they say, hey, lumber company, how you doing this morning? They say, we good. And Home Depot says, well, me and Lowe's are on this conference call with you. And the lumber company says, we hadn't done nothing to make y'all mad, have you? Is that why y'all are meeting? I mean, you're still pleased with our service, aren't you? Yeah, we're pleased, but we don't like all these moves Ace is moving. And Marvin's getting a little uppity too. So we want you to stop selling lumber to Ace and Marvin's if you want to keep selling lumber to us. Consider it done, Mr. and Ms. Lowe's, Mr. and Ms. Home Depot. We're kicking them out of bed today. That's 2 competitors using their leverage to squelch competition. Do you see that? That's called a group boycott. All of this are different ways to affect competition. Allocation of customers and market. What if Home Depot and Lowe's got together and cut every town up, and Home Depot going to take the north side of town, Lowe's is going to take the south? But what if I live on the south side of town and I prefer Home Depot, but it's a 45-minute drive? So that collusion of theirs is not in my best interest. Now, put a star to the left of allocation of markets. According to students, I've gotten a nugget on this. Because the key to an antitrust violations are competitors colluding. Colluding, another word for conspiring. So the question that I hear is a nugget. Let's say I own Mark Yarbrough vacuum cleaners, and I got 4 door-to-door vacuum cleaner salesmen. I got Andrea, and I got Emily, and I got Ricky, and I got Todd. I give Todd the western side of town. I give Ricky the eastern side of town. I give Allison the south side of town. And I give Emily the north side of town. Have I violated antitrust laws? That's because I can allocate market amongst my reps, right? It's just competitors can't allocate market. So what you're looking for is competitors colluding to do some of these things. I could tell everybody, if I own 8 McDonald's in Birmingham, I could tell all my McDonald's we're charging the same thing for all our burgers. That's price fixing, but it's within my company. That's legit. It's when you got competitors price fixing, group boycotting, allocating markets, etc. On page 126. Lord. Penalties. Go to the 3rd line and go to the end of the line, highlight the sentence that begins with an individual who has suffered a loss because of an antitrust violation. Highlight that sentence. So it's in the paragraph called penalties. 3rd line, go to the end of the line, highlight an individual who has suffered blah, blah, blah. So typically, here's the point of this, and this is a nugget I hear on the exam. Typically, it is the federal government suing for antitrust. Kind of like the government sues me for speeding, for assault, for theft, for arson. Well, they don't sue me, but they prosecute me, okay? The federal government prosecutes me for breaking crimes. Well, typically, it is the federal government prosecuting people for antitrust. But an individual could. Like, what if I'm a contractor and I got my truck, and maybe I'm like a one-man shop contractor. I'm not married to any hardware store. I use whichever hardware store is closest to me in the job that I'm working that day. So I'll use Marvin's, I'll use Ace, I'll use Home Depot, I'll use Lowe's, I'll use whatever. And because I use whatever, over a 3 or 4 year period of time, I began noticing that the Home Depot and Lowe's are charging the same thing for their hard tools, for their hammers, their screwdrivers, their Phillips, blah, blah, blah. I noticed that. So I sued Home Depot and Lowe's for antitrust. Just read what you just highlighted. An individual who has suffered a loss because of an antitrust violation can sue for triple. That's what treble means. This is what I hear is on the exam. So this would be an unusual situation where it's not the federal government pursuing for antitrust, like I said, would normally be the situation. This would be where an individual. Moving down the page, NAR affiliates. Guys, it's interesting. This is coming up, but not everybody that gets a real estate license is a realtor. You have to pay dues to be a realtor. Use the R logo. I would say about 60% of licensees are realtors, people in residential sales. Not everybody is, and that's really going to be changing now. I can see a company popping up right now that's NAR-like to pull the rug out from under NAR's feet. But, we've discussed in several different situations throughout this course that there are many areas of specialization. So you could choose to become a member of a particular professional association that represents your particular area of specialization. And some of these, you see a bulleted list. Some of these only require you to pay dues, annual dues. Some of these you have to take course and test out and also pay dues. And professional ethics. That's what the realtor organization tells the public. That's the benefit of using a realtor versus a non-realtor. They say, hey, sometimes you'll see the commercials on TV. Use a realtor, and not only are realtors bound by law, but they're bound by a code of ethics. Because interestingly enough, guys, you can do something that's not against the law, but it is not against the law to sleep with your child's spouse. But horribly. Can you imagine waking up and finding not only did your spouse cheat on you, but with your parents? Oh my God. Anybody in here ever have that? No. I've had the cheating, Mr. Yarbrough, but not the spouse. Well, that would be that's a damn movie. Anyway. But double emotional whammy. I mean, my God, you get kicked in the face and the fanny. So code of ethics, that's how the realtor organization promotes using a realtor. They say, hey, our practitioners have to abide by the law and a code of ethics. And if and when you get in the business and become a member of the National Association, you will have regular ongoing code of ethic training. Bottom of the page, page 127. Highlight that sentence that has the internet data exchange policy in it. I've heard that there's a question on that. Let's talk about it. Guys, this is before we take a break. Back in the day, let's say I wanted to open up a bicycle sales and repair shop. If the new phone books came out in October and you opened up your bicycle shop in November, you were SOL. It was going to be a struggle for you to make it your first year because the phone book is what people use to find you. Anybody in here old enough to know if you needed a plumber, an electrician, you grabbed the damn phone book and you went to the yellow pages. And if your company wasn't in there, you didn't get called. So that's why I say if the new phone books came out October and you open it, you had to time the opening of your business with the new phone book coming out. Well, that's old school. You know what the modern version of the phone book is? A website. I open up a company. I got to have a website, right? But what if I'm selling product? If I have no product in my website, I'm not going to get found on search results, right? Search results mean they're going to scan websites for what the search terms are. And if you don't have, if I'm looking for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house and I'm a brand new real estate company, I just opened up this morning, Yellow Submarine Real Estate. Guess what? I ain't got day one. I ain't got no listings. So guess what? I'm not going to come up on any search results. You follow me? That's the equivalent of opening a company up the month after the phone books come out. So, okay, Mr. Yarbrough, I'm with you. So how do you overcome that? Well, again, let's just remind ourselves, the spirit of MLS is sharing information, okay? That's its purpose. Sharing information amongst companies to expedite the purchasing and selling of real estate for buyers and sellers. The fact that we benefit from MLS is icing on the cake. It is meant to make life easier for buyers and sellers. So the IDX policy came out. So let's say I open Yellow Submarine Real Estate day one, I have 0 listings. Therefore, I'm dead on the vine. I have nothing in my website content-wise that's going to trigger me to pull up on a search result. So the IDX policy says that I, as a new company, can take listings from the MLS, rip them, as the kids say, drop them in my website. Okay. Now, when I drop them from MLS, boom, drop them in my website. I can't deceive the public and make them think they're mine. I have to put the MLS information, right? But why am I doing what I'm saying? So I got content that will allow me to come up on a search result. You see where I'm coming from? So the IDX policy allows MLS members to display MLS data while also respecting the rights of the property owner and the broker who represents them. But let's continue reading. A blanket opt-out provision. Let's say I'm Mark Yarbrough Real Estate, and I say, come hell or high water with some new young buck, be able to rip my listing from MLS and I can opt out as an MLS member. I can opt out of the IDX policy. I don't want my company's listings to be shareable. So, okay, let's turn the page. You see on page 128, examples of technology that's helped us, you know, the evolution. Guys, you can't imagine. Every time a new piece of technology came, it was like lengthening the day. My father said when the pager came out, it's something as simple as the pager. It was like creating a 28-hour day. Just not having to call the office every hour and see if you had any messages. Smartphones, get out. Oh, that changed the whole damn world. Smartphones has changed everything. It's changed me, damn it. I hardly ever spent time on the internet. And I think I really just started getting down with the internet about 2015. But my God, for the last 9 years, I've been glued to the damn phone. I hate myself for it. Email texting, oh my God. My father told me, and he was in the real estate business. That's a coincidence that I am. We weren't close. But he said, son, up until 1990, really, when the fax machine came out, late 80s, you spent 20 hours a week going to pick up crap and drop off crap. Got to go to the title, pick up a title prelim. You got to go pick up the survey, pick up some plans from a builder, drop this off, pick that up, make an offer, go deliver it, go to a company to pick up an offer. 20 hours. There was no faxes. There was no emails. There was no 20 hours a week just driving around, taking rubber off your tires. So he said you only had 20 hours a week to make a living. So every one of these technologies was like creating a longer day, giving a practitioner more time to sell. Social media, a beautiful thing. You know, prior to social media, we had $1,000 to $2,000 in every listing. Sunday paper ad, and the little wire rack magazines. That wasn't cheap. And now you guys can market free. And even if you do paid social media, it's not much. I do have, now that y'all are on board and like to follow my page, y'all see, well, I've been laying out for about the last 2 weeks. I've been slacking off, but I work social media like a mule at the fair. And on my heaviest social media marketing months, 1,000. And that's good in advertising world for a company. 1,000 a month, big deal. That's like car payment for a lot of people. But you don't have to pay. You can get away with your company's website and your own personal website and your social media. You can promote listings pretty good. Internet advertising, electronic contracting. This is a stage we have gone through and weathered. We used to do contracts manually. You'd fill them out with a pen and paper, then you'd fax them over, and then they'd make a counter over and fax it back, and then fax it back. I don't know if any of y'all are old enough to remember the slick faxes with the big roller. You fax something back 2 or 3 times, man, there's, cracks, where the page got bent and smeared ink, and oh my God, it was terrible. You couldn't read them. So now in the electronic contracting, you don't print the contract out until the negotiations are over. I pin an offer on the computer, send it, they receive it, they counter offer it, send it. You don't have a printed document until the contract comes about finally at the end. So, and that wasn't a big deal, but anytime there's electronics and you got different generations in the game, there's going to be a transitional period for everybody to learn. So we got prohibited communications. I'm going to go about 5 minutes past break, and then we're going to take our break because I want to get this in. We're a company, so we advertise. So right here, the do not call list. Some of y'all are too young to even know what that is. And frankly, I think the do not call list was a little too late. Came around in 2003. So if you didn't want, guys, telemarketers used to call us 10 times a night. Air conditioning companies, electricians, plumbers, yard people, pest control people. You was constantly running to the phone. So you can go annually to the Federal Trade Commission's website, put in what phone numbers you want protected in the do not call. So here's 3 bullets in the left-hand margin that I want you to write that you may need to know about the do not call registry. If I am a business and I'm going to do regular ongoing telemarketing, I don't want to call the people on the do not call list, so I have to get the list. What's the source of the list? That's the first bullet. The FTC. And if you don't know what that is, that's the Federal Trade Commission. And if you don't know what that is, that's the Government Consumer Advocacy Group. So if we feel like we're getting screwed by business, we can make a complaint to the FTC, and the FTC will discover if they violated any law. But the first bullet's FTC. That's the source of the list. The second bullet is 31 days. If I'm going to do regular ongoing, I can't just check the do not call list one damn time. I got to check it every month because people are adding their names every day throughout the calendar year. So they'd want me to update my list monthly. Effectively, that's what they're saying when they say every 31 days. And then the last bullet, just write 18 months. I'll explain. 18 months. Let's say I have a Capital One business credit card, okay? And you know how credit cards will decline you for no reason, accident, but it's embarrassing, at a restaurant, So let's say Capital One, they've declined me 3 times. And I'm on a date every time, and it's embarrassing. And I keep calling them up. I got a zero balance. I don't know what's wrong with y'all. Finally, after the 3rd time, I call them up. I say, you can kiss my fanny. I'm cutting my damn card up. I have a zero balance with you, so I ain't got nothing to worry about that. I'm done with you. Well, any business relationship ends, they can continue telemarketing me from 18 months from that most recent activity, okay? So let's say I called today on April 2nd. Kiss my grits. They can continue calling me for 18 months, okay? Previous business relationships. Everything, those 3 bullets I just discussed, is in the 2 or 3 paragraphs below prohibited communication. Look at the fifth paragraph under prohibited communications. If your book's like mine, it's the top paragraph at the top of page 131. The paragraph, inside the paragraph, you see in parentheses FCC. And I want you to highlight FCC prohibits most unsolicited fax advertisements. In fact, I don't know why they say prohibit most. No, they're illegal. Unsolicited faxes are frankly extinct, but they're illegal. Because back in the day, y'all, and again, this is before a lot of y'all had any adult sense, you'd get a fax from a company in 1997. It'd take you 5 minutes to receive the long fax. You know who paid for it? You did. It'd show up on your phone bill. Because back in the day, we didn't get you didn't just pay a round amount like you do now. You had to pay for each minute. We called grandma. Long distance, we paid. So, yeah, an unsolicited fax don't make me pay for something I don't even want. And then the next bullet, the Can Spam Act. This is the electronic version of the do not call list. Draw a line from what you just highlighted, Can Spam Act, down here to the white space at the bottom of the page, and you're going to put 2 bullets. There are 2 bullets on the Can Spam Act. Every email, just write unsubscribe/opt-out. Every email has to have an easily readable unsubscribe/opt-out option. Some people call it opt-out, some people call it unsubscribe, same thing. The second bullet, just put 10 days. If I have a server that just sends thousands of emails out every 30 minutes, and it's just like it just never stops running. If I send you an email on Tuesday and you opt out, and I accidentally send you one on Friday, that's only 3 days later, the government's going to give me a break. They give me 10 days to get an opt-out out of my database, okay? So only 2 bullets. Every email got to have an easily opt-out option, and then you got 10 days to get the opt-out out. You're probably going to have 2 questions from all that we just discussed. Have a question on the do not call, more than likely. You'll have a question on the Can Spam. And then lastly, before our break, is risk management. Guys, I don't care what you do. If you drive a popsicle truck, if you are a hired gun and you ump baseball games in town for the high schools, if you are own a hardware store, it doesn't matter what you do for a living. We live in a litigious climate. And there's risk no matter what you do. So as a business person, you need to identify where your risk lies and make a choice to either 1, avoid it, 2, control it, 3, transfer it, 4, retain it. So let's go over these 4. You will have one of them on the exam. Number 1, write swimming pool in the left-hand margin. If I buy a rental property that was built in the mid-80s, it's still in good shape. It's got a workable swimming pool. It's being used now. But if I'm going to use the property as a rental property, I'm going to fill that pool with dirt and I'm going to put sod over the yard because there's too much liability. A friend of mine in the insurance business told me one time about a deal. Let's say I got a swimming pool and I got a 6 foot tall, 8 foot tall privacy fence around it. And the latch is broke. And next door, let's say there's a 5-year-old and he loves to come over and swim in my pool during the day. But he wakes up about midnight, he walks around the house, bored, and he sneaks out of the house, gets into my broke latch gate and drowns in my swimming pool. I'm liable. Why? Because my latch was broken. But it was a neighbor trespassing. Yeah, it don't matter. When my friend told me that, that's when I said, I will fill a damn pool up with dirt and put sod over it. I am not going to deal with the liability that comes with a swimming pool. That's just getting it out of the question. Number 2, control it. How about in parentheses to the right or in the left, either sprinklers, fire doors. What if I build a building out in the country and it's gonna be an event place, weddings? It's got beautiful nature and I got a big garden, got a nice build. There's gonna be potential fire. So I can control my risk by installing sprinklers, fire doors. Number 3, transfer it, meaning there's no way I can avoid the risk, so I'm just gonna have to take out a liability insurance policy. Remember, I told you if I own a toy manufacturing company, there's no way to avoid. Can you imagine owning a skateboard sales company? Oh my God. There's no way to avoid liability. Kids breaking their dang necks all day long, every day with skateboards. So you just have to weather the storm. Your business has to be built to receive lawsuits and process them. Number 4, retain it. This is a sad choice that a lot of businesses make. We may have a car. Chevy may have a particular car and it gets about 124 lawsuits every year for the last 5 years on average. And we had to pay out X number per, so we're paying out annually X number of dollars on average for this one fault of the car. This one thing, it breaks all the time. So we finally call the engineers and we see how much is it going to cost to redesign the car, and then we got to retool the factory, and the machine is oh my God. And it would take 20 years worth of lawsuits to fix the problem. We're just going to keep paying the damn lawsuits. Do you understand that business decision? If the millions required to fix the problem way exceed what we're paying out in lawsuits, hell, we'll just keep paying out lawsuits. Unfortunately, that is a decision that a lot of people make in the business world. So they're going to have a scenario and they're going to say, Mark did this to address his risk. Did he choose to avoid it, control it, transfer it, or retain it? And now we're going to take a break. I got 12:08. Let's take a 14-minute break. Whoa. All right, gang, we're back from break. So here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna skip our 15 minutes. All right, I wanna keep moving on. This one's a little time crunch, so, this will give you an excuse to have to study. Because I want you to do the 15 minutes. You can do that tonight. But let's move on to chapters 10. Yes, we were just talking at break, spring break, some people went on vacation, took their families. Occasionally, I'll have an agent, a student who will finish, pass the state exam, get into business. And then a year later, I'll run into them in a social situation and we'll, have some catch-up talk. I had a couple of years ago, I had a dude tell me, he said, Mr. Yarbrough, if I'd have known I was gonna lose all my weekends and all my evenings, I don't think I'd have done this. I said, what do you mean losing? He said, damn buyers, man, they take all your weekends and all your evenings away. I said, no, they don't take them. I said, you give them away. You have to be assertive. If you're not assertive as a person, and then read some damn books on becoming assertive. It's that easy. YouTube channel, become assertive. When somebody says, we'd love to go look at some properties, you know what most agents say? When you won't go look? Basically, I'm saying, my life is yours. No. You know your life better than anybody. Decide this, and this is just an idea of a suggestion. You come up with your own. But you say, you know what? I got youngins, I got a family, and I want to maintain quality. So I'm only going to work 2 nights a week. Tuesday nights and Thursday night. Again, I'm just giving you an example. You can say Tuesday nights or Thursday. So when somebody says, yeah, we'd love to go look at properties, Mr. Yarbrough, would you want to go Tuesday night or would Thursday night be more convenient? You see how I answered that question? I steer my business into predetermined times that I want to work. Now, can you make an exception here and there? Yeah, if they're wanting to look at a big old house, 700,000-800,000, that's exception time. But if you start making exceptions for everything, then you're not sticking to your guns. You're defeating the whole purpose of having some control over your life and steering your work into predetermined times. You can decide, I'm not going to work every weekend. I'm going to work every other weekend, second weekend and fourth weekend. First weekend and third weekend from a family. I'm going to be out in the backyard teaching my boy how to throw a breaking ball, on the weekends. I'm going to be taking my kids to the fair. Speaking of, Oak Mountain got the fair going on. Anybody want to meet me there this week? I'm going to shoot. Man, I remember when I was a kid, 17 years old, went to the fair in Fairfield, had a big old sign up, 6 foot tall man eating chicken. Paid $1. You went in, there was a 6 foot tall dude in there with a plate eating chicken. Swear to God. Swear to God. But here's the beauty of being in the real estate business. Weekends are whenever I want them to be. Vacations are whenever I want them to be. Like, I don't have to go on vacation spring break because I'm not an employee. And when you're an employee, you can only go on vacation when people typically take vacations, July 4th, Memorial Day. And that's when the rates are 5 times higher. I go on vacation whenever I want. And you know what I want typically? When the rates are real damn low. And that usually don't jive with the calendar holidays. And, I don't have to go to restaurants on Friday nights and Saturday nights. The sad thing in Birmingham, you just go to an Applebee's on a Friday night and there's a waiting line. I don't care what restaurant. You can go to Shoney's, for God's sakes. There's a damn waiting line. I go to restaurants. Friday night and Saturday night is not a Friday night and Saturday night to me. It's whenever I want it to be. So I don't have the lines. I don't have the high rates. It's a beautiful thing, really, when you think about it. I can assure you, having your own weekends and not having to do what everybody else does. On page 159, Unit 10, Client Representation Agreements. A lot of questions from this area. On the exam, we're going to describe the different types of listing agreements, how they can go away. We're going to talk about listing presentations and the info needed for them. We're going to talk about the listing agreement terms and responsibilities of the parties within. And then we're going to talk about buyer agreements and how they can go away. Let's turn the page. So guys, I told y'all, prior to the legislation coming about in the mid-90s called RECAD, which was when buyer agency first became a concept, buyers had never been able to be clients in Alabama prior to 1996. They were a customer. The only clients were sellers. And I told you, then we invented buyer agency, which created the conflict of interest, dual agency. But prior to 1996, prior to the invention, if you will, of buyer agency, every time I began to work with a buyer, I knew that I could get screwed. I could work for multiple days, showing them multiple properties, then take my family on a little 3-4 day vacation, come back, find out they bought from another agent while I was gone. I had every right to be upset and cuss, but it wasn't going to accomplish anything. I just got off the phone and went, damn, happened again. It just happened all the time. It didn't happen with realtors who spoke frankly to their people. Me and you married, don't be cheating on me. Sometimes that's all you got to tell somebody and they get it. You know what I mean? They get it. But if you just don't talk to people and tell them things, they're going to do things you wish they hadn't. Just be frank with people. Don't have a problem with it. Nevertheless, this addresses what I'm sitting here talking about. We realized in that industry that we needed exclusive relationships. I needed to know that going in and working with a buyer, that I needed some assurances that my efforts were not going to be fruitless. So we created exclusivity. It's a fancy nerd word on exclusive in our relationship. So on page 160, we're going to talk about the 4 types of listing agreements. You can number them 1 through 4. Why? Because the brain learns better from lists. I think I've told you that. This would be a great flashcard. Could have the 4 listings. Each one of them broke out separately on 4 flashcards. Get your kids involved if you got youngins. Let them see how hard you're working for something. You know, you're teaching them in more ways than you think. They're going to know they're going to be an adult. They having to prepare. The cool thing about introducing your kids is, hell, now it holds you to an obligation because you know they're going to be asking you whether you pass or fail. Like I said, creating a little pressure is sometimes what's required to make you perform at a higher level. But the top of you know how I teach with totem poles? So at the top of the totem poles in listing world is the first one. They present them in the order that you want to get them. The exclusive right to sell is at the top. I'm going to define it for you. Listen here. I'm going to define it for you in simple cornbread collard green terms. It has to have a beginning date and an ending date and no notice necessary to terminate. That's a little poem I made. Beginning date, comma, ending date, comma, no notice necessary to terminate. That is it in its simplicity. That's all the law requires. For it to have a beginning date, ending date, and no notice necessary to terminate. And if the property sells within that beginning date and ending date, there is no question that a commission is owed to the listing company. And we talked about if the seller is unwilling to pay the commission or to accept a full price offer, we can sue. But y'all know how the nerds nerd things up. Don't let the nerds make you think that an exclusive right to sell is anything beyond what I just told you. Beginning date, ending date, no notice necessary to terminate. Now, guys, for sale by owners. Most realtors, guys, couldn't sell water to a man on fire. And I'm talking about my own people. Just like you're allowed to talk smack about your family, I'm allowed to talk smack about my family. And most realtors couldn't sell water to a man on fire. They're not selling. Most realtors are chauffeurs that tote people around and point at crap. Here's the kitchen. Please don't ever say that. Make a mental damn note not to ever say that. It's insulting. Oh, what kind of high-end sales training did you take to know that? Here's the bathroom. but they couldn't sell. All they can do is tote you around and point at crowd. You got to learn to become a salesperson, because people have a need to make a decision, and the psychology prevents them from making a decision, because it's difficult to pull the trigger on 6 figures. You know, kind of like it's difficult. You pick the wrong damn dog out as a puppy, you got a bad dog for 15 damn years. You know what I mean? It's a pretty tough decision to make. Same thing, people know that with houses. And just like your spouse, you pull the wrong damn trigger on the wrong one, you know? I mean, you just stuck. It's gonna cost you a couple of dollars to get out of it. My point being is, for sell by owners are a legitimate source of potential business. Most realtors don't call on them. Why? Because they're scared. They don't know how to sell. And for you to get a for sale by owner to list with you, that is a sales process. You understand that? You got to have the ability to convince them why listing with me is smarter than you trying to do it yourself. You go onto YouTube and put FSBO presentation, there's a thousand. I came up with my own for sale by presentation by picking and choosing parts of many that I liked, you know, and trial and error. I may use it for a couple, 3 times, and then I didn't like how it came out of my mouth. So I go back home and I'd edit it. But for sale by owner is a legitimate source of business. So let's say I'm driving down the road, I see a for sale by owner coming up, so I pull over, you know. I get my presentation over here in my manila file folder, I look in the rearview mirror, take my tie up, and I go knock on the door. They come to the door and I ease into my spiel, trying to convince them to list with me instead of trying to do it themselves. And the man says to me, Mr. Yarbrough, a few of your kind have been bothering me lately. I get some phone calls, but they don't talk like you do. Can we come into the living room and finish this conversation? So immediately in my mind, in my body, I get a big old smile, because they dealing with somebody better than the knuckleheads they've been dealing with. And I go in and we finish the conversation. And the man says, Mr. Yarbrough, timing's everything in this world. And you in the right place at the right time today. I've been trying to do this myself for 3 months. And I'll be honest with you, it's a little bit harder than I thought it was going to be. I'm tired of getting asked questions I don't know the answer to. I'm tired of me and the old lady canceling our weekend plans and cleaning the hell out of the house all week for 3 couples that say they're going to come see it on the weekend and then they don't show up. We're tired, and we got to turn this property over, Mr. Yarbrough, so you're in the right place at the right time. So we start to fill out the paperwork, and we get to the bottom, and he's about to put his John Hancock down there at the bottom. And before he does, he goes, wait a minute, Mr. Yarbrough, I done showed my house in 3 months to 8 families. If after I sign this agreement with you today and you put a sign up in the yard, if one of them 8 family steps forward and wants to make an offer, I'm going to feel like I don't owe you a commission on them. I understand the man's logic. Do y'all? Yeah. I say, that's a legitimate. I say, you got them 8 families written down? He said, I got them written down on an envelope in the junk drawer in the kitchen. I said, well, go get that envelope. And then I make that a part of the listing agreement. And I tell the man, we're going to consider them exclusions to you owing me a commission. Y'all see where I'm at with the logic on that? Yeah. That's kind of the thinking behind the next one. We're moving down the totem pole. I just described to you an exclusive AC listing. Let's read. In an exclusive AC listing, one broker is authorized to act as the exclusive agent. Here's what I want you to highlight. The remainder of the sentence, the italicized. But the seller retains the right to sell the property without the obligation to pay the broker. So when I was you and I learned about this, I thought they had to come up with this for the for sale by owner situation, like I just explained. Now, it could be I'm in a small town. Miss Henderson calls me. Mark, how you doing? I say, I'm fine, Miss Henderson. How are you? She says, you know, Mark, I'm retiring from teaching. Maybe she was my 3rd grade teacher. Maybe I'm retiring from teaching, Mark. And, you know, I've had my asthma my whole life. And my sister and brother-in-law moved out to Scottsdale, Arizona. They say that dry air out there is perfect for the people with the asthma. So I'm gonna move out there. Can you sell my house? I said, Miss Henderson, that's what I did. So I go see her. We get some paperwork filled out. I put a sign in her yard. And then 3 weeks later, she calls me up. She says, Mark, my son, you know, he's an adult. He owns a hardware store. He says he wants to buy my house. Because I could get out there to Scottsdale and not like living out west and may want to come back. So he's just going to rent my property out, you know, and I'll have it for if I want to come back. I don't get paid. If I took an exclusive AC listing with her, I gave you 2 examples of why this is an appropriate listing sometimes, okay? The guys out of the 4 that we're talking about, the only one your company's gonna let you take is the number 1. But academically, we gotta know about 2, 3, and 4. You get questions right on the exam. And I gave you 2 practical reasons why the exclusive agency listing might be necessary, might be desired by the seller in certain situations. But you know why I wouldn't take an exclusive agency? What if I took a listing? Here's what some people will say. You'll take a listing, they'll say, Mark, my best friend has had an eye on my house the whole damn time I've owned it. So I wanna hold my best friend out. If my best friend wants to buy it, I don't owe you a commission. But if anybody else in the world wants to buy it, I'll pay you a commission. I'm not gonna take that listing. Because here's what's gonna happen. I'm gonna get a legitimate offer and I'm gonna present it to my seller. And then my seller's gonna call me the next day and tell me, Mark, my best friend's decided he wants to buy the property. Why did the best friend decide they wanted to buy the property? Because I turned the damn heat up. I'm the one that sold the property. Do you understand that logic? I sold the property. I'm the one that turned the heat up under the best friend and made, so that's why I would not take that listing. I got more things to do in my time. An open listing is like an open relationship. You know, it's kind of gross, kind of sticky, not desirable by normal people. You know, there's some freaks out there. They like to freak it up, you know, but you know, they're weird in other areas of life. So an open listing might be, again, let's say I'm driving down the road, I see a for sale by owner. And that's what I do. I'm cocky, confident. I call on for sale by owners. Y'all don't need to be scared of nothing either. You need to call on for sale by owners. It's a legitimate source of business. So I go call on for sale by owners. You know, the man comes to the door. I ease into my spiel. When I finish my spiel, the man says, Mr. Yarbrough, you talk a little bit better than some of these others that's been bothering me. Could we come into the living room? I'm going to put a twist on the same scenario. So I go in there and the man says, Mr. Yarbrough, your presentation is like night and day above everybody else's. I can feel the confidence coming from you. And while you were talking to me, I looked you up on the phone. I see who you are. So timing might be right on this, but I'm financially embarrassed right now. You'll hear old timers say that. I'm financially embarrassed right now, Mr. Yarbrough. Life has thrown me a curveball or 2 and I'm down on my knees. Don't you get me wrong. I've been on my knees a couple of times in life. I get back up, but I really need to sell this damn house and avoid paying a commission. That little bit of commission I could pay you gonna help me get back. But I gotta sell the property. He says, you know, let me tell you something, Mr. Yarbrough, about my situation right now. My best friend is my ex-wife. It's very strange. We did not get along as husband and wife, but we thick as thieves, as friends. And, you know, bonus every now and then. He said she used to be a realtor down there in Florida, and she said there's such a thing as an open listing. Is she right? I say, she's right. If I can remember correctly, Mr. Yarbrough, she said that you could put a sign in my yard, but I'm still opening up to any agent in town selling it. And if any agent in town, other than you, sell my property, I don't owe you a commission. Is she right? She's exactly right. That's what an open listing is. I'd be willing to do one of them with you, Mr. Yarbrough. Immediately, I'm dejected because I was aiming for what? The exclusive right to sell. But in my mind, I think, at least I'm getting my foot in the door. They say something better than nothing, right? So I take the open listing. Maybe I can convince him over the next few weeks to give me the exclusive right to sell, or maybe I'll look out and get him a buyer. I'm just trying to show you from a practical standpoint how these come about in real life and why they might be used in real life. But you see in parentheses, it's a non-exclusive listing. See, an exclusive right to sell, if the property sells during the listing period, my company gets a commission, whether I physically brought the buyer to the table or not. In an open listing, I gotta physically bring the buyer to the table and you gotta physically sign my offer for me to get paid. Net listing, just write illegal in huge capital letters. And yes, you'll have a question. This is a meaty chapter on the exam. And that listing is where the commission is not quantifiable. Let's say this. Let's say a woman calls me, Mr. Yarbrough, I'm virtual students, a lot of y'all had never been to Birmingham. But think of a commercial boulevard that used to be a residential street 70 years ago. I think of Green Springs Avenue, right up above UAB going into Homewood. You can still see old houses on Green Springs Avenue in some places, don't you? That used to be a 2-lane residential street, It's just evolved over 80 years into a damn 6-lane now. But so picture a house on one of them streets. I happen to network with a particular group, meaning I've got 3 or 4 male friends that I like to drink with at this networking group. And one of them works for CVS. He's a real estate guy for CVS. He looks for sites for CVS locations. He's been looking for one on this street that's about to be turned commercial, but it hadn't yet. And a woman on that street calls me, Mr. Yarbrough, I need to sell my house. I've heard it can't go wrong with you. Within 2 hours, I'm at her house doing a presentation in her living room. And I say, what do you think your house is worth? She said, well, everybody else in this neighborhood and on this street with a house like mine has sold their house for about 150. So I guess 150. I said, okay, are you okay with my commission being whatever I sell it for more than 150? She means so I can get top 150 and not have to pay a commission out of that? You just make whatever you sell it for more than 150? I say, yeah. My God, that sounds like a no-lose situation for me, Mr. Yarbrough. I say, okay. We signed the paperwork. I end up selling her property to CVS for $400,000. So my commission's $250. What it is, what was I doing? Taking advantage of something she's not aware of. But I made it sound like a win-win for her. So that's why net listings are illegal. Net listing is where the commission is going to be everything and above agreed upon price. And that's frankly to prevent me from taking advantage of my insider information that you're not aware of. Turn the page. Down at the bottom of page 162 is where we'll be when we come back from. I completely forgot about break. Did I?
You said we were getting it, I thought.
Yeah, well, we can't. It's too late now. Let's just keep going. I mean, I think we did take a break. I always forget. Okay. We did. My bad. I'm trying not to get discouraged in my memory wasting away. I just try to laugh at it at home. It means I'm old as hell and getting worse, but I'm just trying to have a good mental thing about it. I mean, what do? You might as well, right? Guys, you're gonna, just like we said last week, you're gonna have 2 of these on your exam. How can an agreement go away? Same bullets. Remember we talked about it? We gave you 2 to put stars beside. Remember, this list is not different than that list. But we already talked about it, and I told you to put stars by 2 of them, or check marks, whatever. So you can revert back to that. Well, hell, I'll tell you now, damn it. It's the next to last bullet at the top of page 163. And, the one above that, the broker and seller mutually agree to cancel it. No. I know for sure the next to last bullet is one. But the other one on a listing agreement was, can either party breach? And we said, yeah, but the other party can sue. So that's not a choice in this list. Expiration of listing period. Like I said, the law requires it to begin and end. You cannot leave it open. The second paragraph under that term, expiration of listing period, highlight automatic extension clauses. It's italicized. Sometimes you read a lease, guys, it says we require a 1 year or a 30-day notice prior to the termination of this lease. If we don't receive this notice, then your lease will renew for an additional 1 year. That's what we're talking about when we talk about automatic extension clauses. A listing cannot have that. By God, at the ending date, it expires at midnight. But the third paragraph, I want you to highlight broker protection clause. It is self-explanatory in that it protects the broker. What does it protect the broker from, Mr. Yarbrough? From getting cut out of the deal. In real estate, more commercial than residential, they're trying to cut the realtor out of the deal. And they usually wait until the damn closing. They'll be at the closing and they'll be like, according to these numbers, this deal ain't gonna work unless you're agreeable to cut your commission, Mr. Yarbrough. And most realtors are spineless. Okay. I'd rather have some money than none. I'll get it from a deal and go, I got shit to do. I got dry cleaning to pick up, youngins to pick up from school. If y'all ain't ready to do business, you know my number. Call me when you are. I ain't cutting crap. But here's the thing. Let's say I take a 6-month listing and here it is 2 days from expiring and it hadn't sold. And I'm disappointed in myself. And I'm sitting there trying to figure out why I didn't sell the property. The economy is great. It's a fantastic home in great shape. It's in a desirable neighborhood that's very popular. And I'm a little down on myself. I dropped the ball somewhere. So I'm trying to do like in sports, post-game review. What did I do wrong? And I get a call right then. And they want to see the property. I get off the phone. Somebody up there looking out for, oh boy. So I go show it tonight. And they love it. I mean, they just walk around not saying a word, dragging their open mouth around. I say, y'all like this house, don't you? And they're like, my God, we can't imagine why somebody would want to sell it, Mr. Yarbrough. So I say, would it be upset you if you found out this property got sold tomorrow? My God, yes. Then let's sit at the kitchen table and fill the offer out now. Mr. Yarbrough, if we buy this house, we're going to have to take our kids out of the school they're in now and put them in another school district. We're going to have to take the risk. Let us break the news to our kids tonight at dinner. You're like, you sure you're willing to take that risk? Yes, sir. We are. So they tell the kids that night, and their kids don't give a damn. They hate their school. So the next day, they're at Publix grocery store in the produce section, and they see the owners of the home in the produce section. They're not friends with them, but they're acquaintances. Their daughters are in the same Girl Scout troop. So they mosey over across the produce section. Hey, you remember us, Girl Scouts? We looked at your house last night. Shoot, as soon as we get home and put our groceries up, we're going to make an offer on your home. Remember, it's going to expire tomorrow. The husband grabs the other husband by the arm and says, the hell you are. You're going to wait 2 days before you come make an offer on my property. You see what they're doing? They're trying to cut you out of the deal. So the broker protection clause is legitimate in that it protects the broker from getting cut out. What it is, it's a negotiable period of time that piggybacks the listing period. So if you got a listing period of 120 days, you might have a broker protection clause of 30 days that basically tells the seller, if you sell the home to somebody after the listing expires within the broker protection period, to someone that saw the property during the listing period, you're still going to owe us a commission. So it is one of the few clauses that is meant to protect us. Believe it or not, we're almost through with the chapter. The listing presentation, guys, this is something you will learn. You will learn in training. But again, guys, what people want, I say this, not all salespeople go as far as they can, as far as becoming good and better at what they're good at. Just like in every other area of life, some people are satisfied with being mediocre to incompetent. Some people have a certain internal need to become better. And if you feel that internal need to become better, you will take sales training. And a part of sales training very often is ascertaining the personality of the person you're dealing with. When I was a rookie, an old man told me, Mark, if they talk fast, you talk fast. If they talk slow, you talk slow. Because people feel more comfortable when they're around people who are similar to them. People who are very different than them make them feel uncomfortable. Some people are not necessarily shy, but they're introverts. They don't talk a lot. So if you're, this is me. If you're a then they feel uncomfortable around you, Just like if I'm I feel uncomfortable with a mousy person. So you want to try to imitate the person you're around. And if you're an engineer, if you're dealing with an engineer or an accountant, they're detail oriented. You want to be prepared to present the details that they feel comfortable with. But if you're around a normal person, they just want to be around somebody who's comfortable in their own skin, who appears to be trustworthy, and who appears to be concerned about their needs. That's all. You ain't got to sound fancy and polished as long as people feel that from you. The old corny saying, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Have you ever heard that corny saying? It's so true. And what I'm saying is when you're new, you got that psychology of being new and you don't want to be exposed as the rookie. I have seen listing presentations. I have a friend that lives in Atlanta and he's my age and I'm so jealous. I love him like a brother, but I'm jealous of him. He's a good looking guy and he's funny as a comedian and smart as Bill Gates with technology. He's got the whole damn package. And when he goes in with a listing presentation, he's got a projector. He's got an app on his phone to control the projector. He does a presentation and he's got the bar graphs and the pie charts and the demographics and my God, it's so impressive. And then I know realtors, they just have small talk. They go sit in the living room and you went to school with him. I did. Ain't he crazy? You hear what he's up to now? Oh my, and you'll just have small talk for 2 hours after you discover you know people and stuff. And then you'll say, you want to get this paperwork done. I don't think people need the Bill Gates presentation, but I do think people deserve more than small talk. Just find the sweet spot right in the middle. So a listing presentation doesn't have to be like a script that an actor would memorize. I am a bullet list, checklist person. My listing presentation was a bulleted list of things to discuss and in the order I wanted to discuss them. The first bullet might, introduce self. If they introduce your kids, give them noogies, pet the dog. Accept offered cup of coffee. Walk around the house and compliment them on their tastes. Whatever. Just like MapQuest directions are ridiculous the first few steps, you know what I mean? Walk out of your front door. Get in your car. It's ridiculous till you get on the damn road. So yeah, it's just a bulleted checklist of things I wanted to discuss and in the order I wanted to discuss them. Not a big deal. But if you know how to do bar graphs and pie charts and all, it ain't gonna do nothing but make you look a little smarter than you probably already are. But a big part of the listing presentation is in bold print, in that second paragraph, highlight comparative market analysis, CMA. This is what me and you do prior to a listing presentation. This is how we arrive at an asking price. And I want to keep that hidden until I know I'm going to get a commitment. Because sometimes you can feel wishy-washiness from the seller that you're standing in front of. But sometimes the listing presentation is a formality. They're going to sign it because you know them. They're your friends or your uncle or you grew up with, you know what I mean? I would practice my listing presentation on people that love me. You know, if I'm brand new in the real estate business, I would practice my listing presentation with my wife, my husband, my kids, my parents, because it is something worthy of practicing. If I want to be an MBA player, do you think MBA kids that are in preparation, if they become goal-oriented in 8th grade, they want to play in the NBA, do you think they're going to practice at the individual skills more than an average basketball player? Of course. So if you want to be better than an average realtor, practice your damn listing presentation. It's amazing to me what people are willing to half-ass. Your career is only the thing that affects your quality of life. That's all. Your mental health, your physical health, the quality of meals you eat, vacations you take, the education your kids have, and people half-ass things that are important in the context of that. So if I'm going to decide real estate's my gig, passing the exam is just step one. Now I want to work on my dress. I want to dress for success. I want to work on my presentation. I want to try to speak in business terms. I want to learn how to ascertain the profile that they are so I can mirror them. But I'm going to practice. The CMA is going to be important to me, and I don't want to give it up. Because if I just tell somebody what my CMA arrived at as an asking price, you have no idea how important that is in selling a home. Knowing the sweet spot that a property sells for is a talent that we have that is extremely valuable. And don't just be prepared to give it away until I know they're going to put ink at the bottom of that listing. And if I arrive at a price of $320,000 and they go, 320, you say, hon, well, if you don't sell it, if you don't put it on the market for 350, you don't get the listing today. You know what most spineless realtors will do? Take an overpriced listing. And you know what most realtors are in their first 6 months of the business? Spineless. Because you can't imagine turning down business when you're brand new, can you? You'd be like, oh, 320 is what the CMA. But if you say I got to have 350 to get the listing, I'll take an overpriced listing. So you put it in 350. The first realtor who's experienced it drives out, goes, some punk taking overpriced listings, and they look at your name, Mark Yarbrough, and they go back to the office. They go, I don't know who this Mark Yarbrough dude is, but don't show his listings. I just went and showed one of his listings. Hell, we didn't even get out of the car because we saw $30,000 without even having to get out of the car. We just backed up, went to the next one. You already have a bad reputation coming out of the gates. So you don't want to take overpriced listings. Be prepared to turn around and walk away. Learn, that's a part of sales training, to convince somebody why they're wrong and you're right, and in a way that is not condescending. Because sometimes it's difficult to tell someone they're wrong and you're right and have them still feel good about you psychologically. You see where I'm coming from? Especially if it's a man. So that's a big part of sales training, is not taking an overpriced listing. But a listing presentation, it doesn't need to be a script that you memorize, just a bulleted list. And you'll come up with a bulleted list. You'll come up with sales training. You can ask your broker for help. You can ask top producers for help. And you can modify your checklist. You know, after you come back from your first listing presentation, go into your checklist and change some things. And if you feel comfortable doing that, take that step out. Take that step out, add a step. You know, let your checklist continually get modified, but don't ever abandon your checklist based on the level of comfortability you begin to achieve. Women, your husband had a checklist when he was dating you, and he threw it away when you got married. And the quality of your relationship has diminished. We all know what I'm talking about, don't we? Don't ever abandon your checklist just because you're getting comfortable, because you know what? You'll begin omitting things without realizing it. And they were important things. The reason I use women is women don't know. He's right. My husband never does this anymore. He used to always do that. And he never does this anymore. He used to always do that. And so don't ever abandon your checklist. You can continue honing it, changing it, editing it, but don't abandon it. And one thing is I always had a checklist for what stage I was in inside my manila file folder. If I was going for a listing presentation, I had my listing presentation checklist. So if I got a listing, now I got a new listing check, because now I got to put it in the MLS, got to order a title prelim, may want to go ahead and set up a closing with a closing attorney, may want to get my mortgage person involved here, right? And now we're going to make an offer. We've presented an offer and the offer's been accepted. Well, I just got accepted checklist. Because if you don't, guys, there was a time, me and Joel, a buddy of mine, we partnered up at a real estate company. I had 2 other jobs. I was an AE for American Family Funds and an AE for SunTrust Mortgage, and I was doing real estate. I was a hustler. I was 30. I had the energy. I was working 3 jobs. And I told Joel, I could only work with you Tuesdays. That's the only day of the week I can give you. And all we did was get listings. We did not show properties. We called expireds. We called for sale by owners. And so that's all we did was put signs in yards. I had a point. I forgot. Oh, at one point in time, me and Joel, everybody in the office was jealous of us because we always had more listings than anybody, any team, anybody, and we only worked 1 day a week together. There was a time we had 37 listings in our pipeline. So again, I'm just talking as I'm trying to remember my point. You're a hustler. You get in the business. You scratch up 10, 15 listings. Guess what you start doing? Forgetting crap. Did I put a sign up in that new listing? Did I call them and in fact and email them what I told them? You see what I'm saying? You start generating a lot of business. You can't remember what you've done and you know what I mean? So my checklist always ensured what I knew. All I had to do was open a file to see what stage I was in with these people. And every time I did one of the steps in the checklist, I crossed it out. So I don't know how old school any of you are, but there used to be called a tickler file. And you can Google tickler file. I think it's a little rudimentary for the modern day, but effectively that's what I was doing. I had a built-in tickler file. I just was able to open it up and see what needed to be done. And once you you got 12 buyer families you're actively showing properties to, and you got 20 listings in your pipeline, these checklists are going to be important. They'll save your life. But yeah, the information needed for a listing agreement is in the courthouse. And guys, what you have is something I didn't have. Courthouse retrieval. Your company pays for you to have access at your fingertips to everything that's in probate, everything that's in the courthouse records. All you got to do is pull up the property. You got to go to the courthouse. It's just a list populates of all this crap that you need for your listing presentation and then for the MLS. So, starting on page 166 and over the next 8 to 10 pages, we see an example, a classroom example of a listing agreement that exists in Minnesota. Any Minnesotans in here? They really have a unique accent. Very thick. My daughter's from Wisconsin. Theirs is thick, but not as thick as Minnesota. You can go over this while you're in outside of class studying. And then beginning on page 173, they took all those clauses out of that listing agreement and broke them out. Who described them? On page 174, they give you 4 different examples of how a commission question could be asked mathematically. Because they could tell you Sarah made $4,200 on the sale of a $280,000 home. What was her commission rate? 6%. But if you don't know how to do that math, you would not get that right. Or they would say the purchase price was $260, the commission rate was 6%. What was the commission paid? Or they'll say the commission paid was $6,200, the commission rate was 6%. What was the list price? What was the contract price? So you may need to come in the back door, the side door, the front door to get the answer that they're asking. So they're giving you one scenario and they're telling you the 4 different ways they could ask some information from that one scenario. So yep, highlight that whole damn block, or at least put a star by it, something that let you know you need to study that outside of class. Guys, if you're only at math, you can get all of them. This ain't high-end math. It's medium to low. And again, interesting to go over. And then the buyer AC agreement, same crap, but tails instead of heads, like a quarter flip. Starting on page 177, they start talking about the buyer representation provision. So there's a buyer AC agreement for every one of the 4. They have an equivalent of a right to sell or an agency or an open, just like the listing. They spend the next few pages showing you a classroom example. And then boom, we're at 184 at the key point review. So I'm purposely not going to make you do your 15 minutes. Please do your 15 minutes this evening, whenever your this evening is. 15 minutes, that's 30 minutes. And then you can review it. That's a 30-minute study session. So guys, we have just now covered the first of the 3 big subject areas on your state exam. Agency is one of them. Chapters 8, 9, and 10 are agency. You want to dog-ear them pages. You want to focus on the 3 biggies. Tomorrow, we're doing chapters 11, and that is the second of the 3 biggies. Agency, contracts, and law. Law will be your first subject after we come back from the midterm, and it will not be on your exam. The contracts and agency will. So y'all have a safe trip home. Hopefully you can knock out your 30 minutes tonight, and I'll see y'all at 10 o'clock in the morning. Y'all have a safe trip home.